Hello everyone, welcome back. Today we are painting a bouquet of loose florals using all fall colors. If you're new here, my name is Teresa. I'm a surface pattern designer and watercolor artist. And this channel is all about learning to paint with watercolors with a very relaxed mindset. I hope you'll join me. I am going to start out with my number 12 Blooms Princeton Filbert brush. And the first color I will use will be burnt sienna here. And I've mixed in a little alizarin crimson with it, just to give it a little bit of a more of a pink tone. And I'm going to do a peony right here. So first I'm going to put my first petal down, and then I will use the side of my brush to make some side strokes, and then the tip of the brush to get the back petals. And then just keep adding as many as you want. And then I'll do one more down here using a mixture that, of course, all the brushes and the pigment colors will be down below in the description. But this is a little bit of an odd mixture that I've used here, and I just kind of went through my palette and started mixing stuff until I got something that was kind of brownish pink. There's a lot of buff in it. And now I'm just adding some olive green and sap green mixture to do some leaves. And because I've used the filbert brush and there's a lot of roundness to these petals, I decided to make these leaves kind of shaggy, just to add a different texture. Of course, you can do your leaves any way you want. It doesn't matter. But I'm using my grabby quill brush for those leaves. And then I am going to use some yellow ochre to do some smaller blooms. And really these are kind of non-specific flowers. And now I know peonies are spring flowers. They are not fall flowers. But I'm really in the mood to do peonies, and you know, it doesn't matter. I am using fall colors. I just enjoy doing peonies right now. I'm just kind of in that mood, so I'm doing peonies. And peonies do come in a red color. They don't come in that brownish pinkish color, but that's okay. You know, you can, that's the beauty of art. You can do it the way you want to do it. And then I added a bud up here in the top. So with a bud, you just kind of want a round or a little bit of an oblong shape. And I like to come back and do these leaves on the side while everything's still wet. And it just makes it blend really well without any effort at all. And usually I like doing blooms in threes, but today this is filling up my page very nicely, and I'm going to allow that bud to serve as my third larger element. And now I'm just going to fill in, and I'm using my silver brush. Let's see, this is a silver brush number 12. And again, you just do leaves however you want. So because this is a different flower, I'm kind of doing my leaves a little differently. I'm using my silver brush rather than the mop brush like I did with the peonies. I want something wispy here. I want a lot of texture. So I'm taking these ultra fine silver detail brushes that I just got that I really love. And I'm just doing some squiggles and some thin lines to add that different texture in the background. And then I think I'll add a few little yellow flowers, little small tiny flowers. Again, it's really nice to have multiple sizes in your composition. So we've got these two really large blooms, then we've got the bud and those other little flowers that are kind of a medium size. And now we're going to have these tiny yellow flowers. So that will help give the whole composition some visual balance and interest by having multiple sizes. And I'm just going to fill in a little bit in the background all over with these little non-distinct yellow flowers. And this yellow is cadmium-free yellow Winsor Newton with a little buff mixed in with it to give it more of an earthy tone and less bright. Cadmium-free yellow can really be a little on the bright side, and I tend to think of it more as a spring color. So an easy way that you can kind of dull down your colors and make them more earthy is to add buff titanium to them. And that kind of dulls it a little bit. And I like to do that especially for fall flowers, if your color's too bright. But like the burnt sienna and alizarin crimson did not need it. Even though alizarin crimson tends to be bright, that burnt sienna was enough to bring that color down a bit. You know, it's still bright, it's just not, you know, it's not spring vibrant. And the other mixture is, like I said, several colors. It's yellow ochre, a lot of buff, and there was a pink in there, and I'll have to look that up and I'll put it in the description. But there was a little bit of a pinky color in there. And now I'm just adding these little filler wisps. And I'll use that large peony mixture of the crimson and burnt sienna to do the details on the bud, because I really wanted a deeper color to stand out there for the details, and that color works perfectly. And it's really nice if you can use a color in multiple spots throughout your composition. It just ties it all together. And since we don't have that red anywhere else, that's a nice little spot to put it in. So I added a little, believe it or not, a little sepia, just a tiny bit of sepia to that same mixture, just to deepen that red so that I could come back with these other petals to really make it stand out. I'm using a smaller filbert brush this time with the second layer of petals. I believe this is my 16. It's a fine touch brush, and I've actually used quite a few sizes of filberts throughout this whole painting. I've used the larger Princeton 12, then I have a 16 and an 18 filbert brush that's made by the Fine Touch that I'm coming back with and using quite a bit. And I also used a filbert to do the stamens. So by adding another layer of petals that are darker or even a different color, it gives these blooms some depth. And everything goes back to, on a peony, everything goes back to that one center spot. So we had that larger petal, the very first petal that we did, and the base of that petal will be the center of where all these other petals come back to when you paint a peony in this position. You know, if you're not looking straight onto it. In any flower, all your petals come back to the center. But with this kind of side view, especially of a peony, because the petals fall downward as it opens, then you kind of have a different little focal point there. And I felt like this was missing something over here. Those two by themselves seemed kind of odd. Most things work better in a composition if they're odd numbers. 3 is like the perfect, but 1 can work well in certain situations, like the one bloom down at the bottom there. That's just fine being down there by itself. It's working well. But those 2 that were sticking out up there, that just kind of looked odd. So I'll put that 3rd one up there. And these little tiny flowers were kind of getting lost up there. So I decided to come back and add some greenery to them. And now I'm using a little bit of Van Dyke Brown with some sepia to do these dark centers. As I look at it, I really like this, but I kept feeling like it needed a little something else. So we had some of the Dr. Martin's Bleed Proof White left over in this plate from our pumpkin pie that we did last week. So to help use it up, I thought I would use it to just give some highlights to these petals. I'm noticing it's a little too translucent. So here in a minute, I'm going to come back and go over it again, just to make it a little brighter. And the palette here that I'm using today off on the right-hand side, that is the same palette of colors that we used with the pumpkin pie. And I just added the burnt sienna to it because I really wanted to use up these colors. I didn't want to waste this palette. So I will paint with this palette probably for the next few weeks just to use it up. And the great colors are great fall colors. And now I'm coming back with a more concentrated mixture of the Dr. Martin's because it was just drying way too light. So I'm going back over it. And it will dry a little bit lighter again, but I think this will probably be enough. Typically, I will use white gouache to do this part. I already had this plate left over of Dr. Martin's bleed proof white, so I really wanted to use that. And I kind of went over those with the bleed proof white, so I just redid those two little sepia stamens. Well, I think I'm pretty happy with that. Well, I hope you enjoyed that one. If you did, please give me a thumbs up to let me know. And if you haven't subscribed already, please consider subscribing. When you like, comment, and subscribe, it helps the algorithm know that you enjoyed this content, so someone else may as well. And if you painted along with me today, please use the hashtag paintingwithbela on Instagram so that I can see your artwork and comment on it. Thanks so much, and hope to see you next week.